Welcome back to the Bet Golf DFS show here at betversgolf.com. As always, I'm your host, John Daigle, joined today, first up, you know him as PGA Splits 101 on Twitter. It is none other than the great Ron Kloss. Ron, how are you doing ahead of the third major of the year?
Yeah, just really excited. With all the drama going on in the golf world, all the hype has been building for this event, and I think the real star of the show is going to be this course, LA Country Club. I can't remember ever being so excited to kind of see a golf course in action. So that's one of the big things I can't wait to see this week is how the course plays.
And we will get into the details of that course in just a moment, but we would not be a trio without our third. He is the Model Maniac on Twitter. It is none other than the host of the Back Nine Bets podcast, Byron LaCC. Byron, how are you doing?
As good as ever, boys. It's the US Open week. It's almost the end of the grind. Wednesdays are usually when I'm running on fumes with the content world kind of coming to a close. But I'm doing better than Ron. I at least got internet and a full complement of screens and apps and things I need. So we're in good shape. I'm feeling good.
Ron has his phone, so he will make do with caveman internet the best he can. And I want to actually come back to you, Ron, because you mentioned being excited about this course. For anyone who has gone to betversgolf.com and seen your free US Open course preview, a few points you emphasized was this Los Angeles Country Club being the fifth longest course on tour, including the third longest that's hosted a major over the last couple of seasons. Also, firm and fast conditions will be the defense for this course against golfers. And we are expecting a majority of approach shots to be used from long irons, basically prioritizing 175 yards out. But what else about this course excites you ahead of this weekend?
Yeah, so, it kind of starts with the fairways. Everyone's talking about how wide they are. And then, like people are saying, just because they're wide, these are really different fairways. They slope in all different directions. And so, you have Bermuda rough, which is also different, very unique for US Open. But yeah, these fairways are contoured, they're angled. So you have to hit your drives on the right side of the fairway. So there's a lot of accuracy that's really still in play here. And, I do have accuracy way up there as opposed to distance, even though this is a long course. I think another big thing that I'm looking at here is with these greens, like around the greens, the slope, the speed of the greens. They're supposed to be really firm and fast. You're going to hear those words a lot this week as well. I think lag putting, these greens are kind of bigger. And so I think that's going to be a really key this week as well. But yeah, just looking for guys who are really good, whether it's chipping from tight lies, whether it's, you got these bunkers that have this really soft sand. You got these barrancas, which are basically dried out riverbeds that are kind of one of the most penal areas of the course. So there's just a whole lot in play here. And the thing that really gets me excited about the course is just how unpredictable each shot could be. Players are going to have all different types of lies. And so I really think the creative shot makers, the strategic thinkers, and there's a couple players who definitely fit that bill that we'll discuss who are really going to be playing a lot this week.
Pure bent grass green putting will be discussed throughout. Also, the fact that at least as of Wednesday afternoon, there's no wind advantage from what I've seen in that, yes, the afternoon wave looks like they will get close to double digit 10 to 12 mile per hour wind. But at the same time, if they turn around and they're back on the course first thing in the morning, no wind to worry about whatsoever. So even amount of tee times with some very respectable groupings, unlike what happened at the last major. Byron, what else are you looking at for the LACC when building lineups?
I am looking at guys that have played well in majors in particular. I think there's just a certain type of golfer that shines in these environments. We can get into them here shortly, but you can just see their short game gets better, their total strokes gains get better. It's just a different breed of golfer that succeeds. I'm also looking for bogey avoidance with a tinge of birdie or better rates because I'm, like we spoke about yesterday, John, I'm not entirely sure how this course is going to play. I think it could be anywhere between -7 to -13, -14. So that can impact kind of how the week goes. So potentially you can build different lineups based off of if you think it's going to be a bit medium kind of difficulty versus the hard style that we typically see in majors. So two kind of avenues there is going to be how I'm rolling my lineups out this week.
And we spoke in length about rainmakers for everyone. If you'd like to catch our quick 10-minute video we did last night, But now we're speaking about DFS and salaries and using those and where everyone stands. And as we get into the first tier of golfers, that is prudent just because Scottie Scheffler is the top at 11.4. It's very well known by now that he switched his putter. That's the only area he's been lacking this calendar year. And if that were to fix things, I would imagine he's going to come in quite high rostered. John Rahm also underneath him at 11.1. Brooks Koepka at 10.8. Patrick Cantlay at 10.3. Cantlay, who I think will be the overlooked one among this group, a group that also includes Victor Hovland at 10K. Byron, let's go ahead and get started here at the top. Where are you thinking in this range of 5 golfers?
Yeah. Immediately looking at Patrick Cantlay at that kind of price, 10.3 seems very affordable for someone playing in California. Now, it's not on POA greens. We are putting on bent. I don't know. I wasn't listening to Ron in the beginning. My bad. But we are on bent grass greens in California this week versus POA, which is not your typical kind of golf course that you will find on the West Coast. He's really good on bent grass greens. Now, his ownership is projected as one of the lowest of the 5. And we could see one of those like classic reverse pivot ownership situations where, oh, Patrick Cantlay's low owned, let's go to him. And the whole kind of industry shifts that way on a Wednesday afternoon. And then he lands up being a little higher towards the 20% range come tomorrow morning when we wake up. So I don't mind Cantlay either way. I'm having a tough time not playing Brooks. I think at that price and what his ownership's looking like right now, sitting in the teens, it seems very appealing to me for someone that's second in strokes gained in majors. So there's a lot to like about him. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, but I'm tempted to just not play Scottie Scheffler this week. I don't know. I'm going to think about it, but he's so good from tee to green. I think, when the ball's bouncing around on this kind of venue, there's a bit more issues that can happen. And if the course plays a little easier than we expect, I'm particularly inclined to go away from Scottie.
And I know you're struggling to discuss it because it's strictly for game theory purposes and just trying to get off the 35, 40%, especially in smaller fields, high stakes. I would imagine he's not going to be faded at all. And as we also talked about on that previous show we did together last night, I mean, it's just the way he's playing right now. He is literally the god of golf who is doing everything in peak Tiger Woods fashion, except for putting. So if this putter change really is going to bring him to fruition in every aspect of the game, then it's over. Like, then we have a winner already discussed. But Ron, go ahead and you can dive into the game theory reasoning for Scheffler and whomever else you like at the top here.
Yeah, so just going back to Cantlay really quick, because I do like him, and Byron said a lot of good things about him. But, he's got 12 top 25s in majors in his career. So it's not like he's been terrible in majors. He just hasn't broken through yet. And so, the fact that he went to UCLA, pretty sure he's played here more than any other player. He played here, in his own words, more than a dozen times. Shot a 62 here. Obviously, that was years ago. But I think he's, like Byron said, in that price range. He's a really good play. I have an outright on him. But just going to the top here. So let me go over Scheffler. So, and yeah, like when it comes to majors, usually it's best not to overthink it. There's only a handful of players who are gonna probably have a chance to win. Now, with this course being so unique, there could be an outlier who sneaks in. That's possible. But I mean, when you look at him being the best tee to green player in the world, okay, and we're talking by Tiger Woods margins here, okay, recently. So, 3.15 gaining tee to green this year so far. Cantlay is the second best at only 2.1. So he's lapping the field. The key thing for me with Scheffler was a stat I came across yesterday. So yes, he's 148th on tour in putting. But when you look at approach putt performance, which basically measures how close a putter gets their initial putt to the hole, he's third in the entire PGA Tour in that same time period. So he's struggling, okay, to sink those initial 10-footers, 20-footers, but he's not three-putting. Okay, and so on a course like this where you have these tricky greens, some really huge greens over 8,000 square feet, I think his ability to lag putt is going to save him strokes throughout the event. So that's kind of the big thing for me why I'm on Scheffler. I'll be matching the field, if not trying to go above. I know we'll get to the 7K range, and there are some chalky guys down there, but I think there's also some ways that we could get different down there as well. And just really quick, John Rahm, maybe, I don't know what the current ownership is at right now, but maybe somewhat a forgotten man. His short game is much improved. Just at the Memorial, he gained 11.4 strokes ball striking. He did lose 5 putting, but he's been a much more consistent putter than Scheffler has been recently. Rahm, like Cantlay, has also been dominant in California. So, I don't think you can go away from those 2 guys at the top of the board. I will say that I am completely fading Koepka, and that's a very scary thing to do. But for me, this is not a typical US Open course. I think the added layer of shot making and creativity that's needed, not that he can't do that, but I just think, he's so good at these traditional, bomb it and gouge it and those type of tracks that I think this may be a little different. And that's kind of at 10.8, he's pretty pricey. And so that's kind of all goes into my reason for not playing Koepka this week.
That certainly helps lower some exposure for everyone at the top, especially because I've tried it. You can do Scheffler and Brooks together, but you got to get really ugly in the low 6Ks, which I have a hard time finding. We'll get there when we get there.
I got you.
And that's, of course, you always do. Ryan Garrard, I'm sure, will come up. But also, Byron, it makes Cantlay, for both the reasons y'all discussed, interesting because Cantlay's also somewhat of a sneaky pivot that people don't think about off of Victor Hovland, since Hovland and Scheffler are so easy to combine. So even going up that extra $300 and spending on Cantlay instead of Hovland does get us a little unique exposure if that's the way you want to play it, stacking 2 of the expensive guys. But if that's not the way you want to play it, Ron, I will come to you at the 9K range, because then we can get interesting with Rory McIlroy at 9.9. Xander Schauffele, I think, is picking up a little bit of steam midweek at 9.6. Max Homa, who, yes, we, of course, have to discuss his lack of performances in majors at 9.4. Colin Morikawa, who's in the big grouping at 9.3 on day 1. Jordan Spieth, 9.2. Matthew Fitzpatrick, former U.S. Open winner, at 9.1. And Cam Smith at an even 9K. Your thoughts?
So this week, maybe as opposed to some other weeks, I am taking some firmer stands and just crossing guys off up here. And Rory is somebody I'm crossing off. I know he hasn't been playing bad. He's kind of had these top 7 finishes over the last month or so. But just watching him at Oakdale, on Sunday, just, right there and then just fading away. Just that combined with kind of the same thing with Brooks. I don't know if he has the creativity around the greens here. Just little things like that. So that has me off of him because I really like some of these guys below him. I know Xander's going to be really popular, but just, when you talk about short-term, long-term history, he's gained 33 strokes ball striking his last 5 events. He's also obviously consistently positive with his short game. He's just one of those guys, similar to Cantlay. He's got this all-around game, but it's going to really play well here where you're going to have to use every club in your bag. He's never finished outside the top 20 in the US Open. So just the model of consistency, and while he may not win at that price, if he gets you a top 10, hopefully higher, I think that might be enough. The 2 guys I really like, and this goes back to the kind of the course fit that everyone's talking about this week, Jordan Spieth. Okay, ball striking has been excellent, 5th at the Memorial. But when you throw in his short game creativity, if we're talking about this course as, a strategic shot makers, a thinking man's course, I mean, Jordan Spieth, that all screams, his name. And so, nobody talks on the course like he does. Nobody thinks through shots like he does. So I just think this is a real good position for him. And again, I don't know what his current ownership is at the moment, but kind of in the same vein, and I'm glad I get to talk about Cam Smith before Byron does. But, he's been growing on me throughout the week. If he can just be average off the tee, he's going to be right there in the mix all the way till Sunday. When he was interviewed about this course, his face lit up because he talked about how it reminded him, of course, is back in Australia, and just how firm and fast it is, the layout. So, I think he's obviously a top 5 short game player in the world when he gets around those greens. We talk about magic beans, the ability to sink, 20-foot pars for putt or putts for par. He kind of just, just everything you're looking for here. And even if you go back to where he has had his best finishes, you look at Augusta, you look at St. Andrews, you look at even Kapalua, all of those courses have sloped fairways. And so just something about the terrain, the feel of this course. I think for him, it really lines up as a good play at 9K.
Byron, would you like to get into 9K Cam Smith now?
I mean, Ron he's just trying to woo me. I mean, talking sexy stuff about Cam Smith, nothing I can disagree with there. They all have really big greens as well, Ron, those 3 courses you mentioned. And I think that helps him from his inaccuracies off the tee. The bigger the green is, the more likely you are still to hit the green from the rough. So Cam Smith, at a golf course like this where, like at the last major, Oak Hill, the penal cabbage just ruined his entire mojo. This week, I think he can still scramble pretty nicely out of the rough quite fine. I don't mind Xander at all. I do think I'm going to be playing him as a chalky option here. That consistency, man, he's an elite long iron player, and we're seeing a lot of 200-plus yard shots at this venue this week. And I think that just perfectly sets up for his game. And then a little pivot action in this range is Colin Morikawa. I don't mind him at all, sitting around $9,300, around 10%, 11% owned. If you think about what Colin does badly on the tour, it's around the greens and putting. And we discussed this for the PGA Championship. He jumps considerably in strokes gained around the green and putting in majors. And it happens for some weird reason. He just forgets that he's bad at that and just becomes average to good. And then he's once again one of the best iron players in the world. So we're going to get a nice combination there from Colin at around 10%, $9,300. I don't mind that at all this week.
Any particular player, maybe you already mentioned him, Ron, that you are looking to fade in the 9K range? You talked about who you're high on, but is there someone you think you'll just be off altogether? And is it just Rory?
Yeah, so I'm not playing any Colin Morikawa. I know a lot of people are going to be off him due to, concerned about his back a little bit. But he wasn't really playing well even before that. He's had 2 missed cuts. He had a 26th and a 29th, kind of in those last 4 starts before he withdrew at the Memorial. So, I think his short game difficulties at times are going to put tremendous pressure on him here. So just for all those reasons combined, ball striking aside, and the fact that he's played here many times, that's kind of the main reasoning why I'll be fading Morikawa.
In that case, let's move on to the 8Ks, because I think it starts to get really interesting here, knowing that if people only play one of the 5-digit players, they can come right down here and play 2 of these guys. And Tyrrell Hatton, playing the best golf of his life at 8-9. Tony Finau, 8-8. Justin Thomas, who is a bit of a putting slump at this moment, 8-7. Hideki Matsuyama at 8-6. Shane Lowry, 8-5. Sung J M, 8-4. Dustin Johnson at 8-3, which seems like an odd price. Sam Burns, 8-2. Jason Day, 8-1. And Cam Young, even 8K. Byron, get us started.
Cool. What about DJ's price is weird to you? It's too low?
I believe it's too low. Yes.
Interesting, because he's done nothing to warrant even being in the 8K range, in my opinion. I think he should be in the 7.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Because the guy's just been hot garbage, outside of a live win that he kind of stumbled into some way. He hasn't really done anything else. Yeah, he hasn't really done too much else in the big majors. I think he missed the cut at Augusta and then, dogged it up at the PGA after having a solid first opening round. So nothing inspiring from DJ in that respect. So I'll be going to Tyrrell as a chalk bomb as well. You got to be conscious of how you build your rosters. If you're going with like a Xander and a Tyrrell in that range, it's going to get real chalky real quick. But man, the guy's just kind of essentially bulletproof across the board, putting, irons, driving, around the greens, just everything trending in the right direction. And, his last major, he shot 7 over in his front 9. And then if he shot level par, he would have pretty much finished second in that tournament had he not blew it in the first 9. So he has got major potential. He can grind away on tough courses. I don't mind him at this venue. Shane Lowry, if we're going with the way that we think it's going to play sub 10 for a winning score, Shane Lowry's your guy. If it's going to be into the teens, he's not. So I don't mind Shane Lowry. Yeah, if we expect it to be difficult, his ball striking is something like, he's kind of a Scotty Scheffler, but an XL version of that, and not nearly as good from tee to green, but still pretty solid. So I don't mind Shane Lowry at all with that kind of ball striking and lack of upside in a birdie fest, but he's someone I'll be going to as like a pivot in this 8K range.
I think it's odd to me just because we're used to a player who has won majors to be a higher price naturally. Ron, you even tweeted out the strokes gained on average for this entire field in both majors and the Players Championships. That's a bigger course since 2019. And Dustin Johnson in that range, basically just who elevates their game for majors and important events. Dustin Johnson is sixth in strokes gained and differential when it comes to majors. And so he's just one of those players usually shows up and is priced more. I think that's what initially stood out to me. However, I will say, another big game player, in my opinion, that I will be planting a flag on is Hideki Matsuyama. Very high on him this week, whether it's my second highest guy on roster or maybe trying to squeeze him in with Cantley or Victor Hovland. But Hideki, we benefit from those back-to-back missed cuts, the Arnold Palmer and Genesis Invitationals. But since then, 7 consecutive finishes inside the top 31, that T5 finish at the Players Championship. He's lost strokes on approach, which, as we talked about earlier, is important at this event. And only one of his last 9 tournaments, and then top 10 in this field as well, and strokes gained around the green over the last 36 rounds. So really coming to form and just everything we want for this course, in my opinion. So at 8-6, Hideki's absolutely one of my favorite players in DFS lineups this week. But Ron, I will kick it to you for the rest of the tier.
Let me start with the bottom half of this tier because it's pretty rough. And just really quick on each guy. So Sungjae has been struggling mightily, just every part of his game approach, staying away from him. DJ, he does raise his game. I think a lot of that, though, was 2, 3, 4 years ago even. So I just think right now, he's one of those guys that I think, unlike Brooks, he's just kind of enjoying his life on the LIV Tour. I'm not saying he's not taking it seriously, but I just don't see it from him. Sam Burns has been horrible tee to green. Like, if you go back to the start of this year, he's actually losing strokes tee to green, which is just unheard of. His putter's kind of been saving him a lot. Jason Day, another guy who's just, going back and forth with his equipment, making changes here and there. Other than his win at the Byron Nelson, like, he's finished in the 50s and 60s. Like, so he's just been very inconsistent lately as well. Cam Young, struggling everywhere around the greens. He would be a guy, you look at that price, I would be salivating over that, 3 months ago. But, I just think he's a little bit lost out there. So for me, the top of this range is where it's at. I will say I'm also fading Tyrrell Hatton. I do think with his ownership getting up there, and I think a course like this, as quirky as it is, he's going to hit some really good shots, and he's going to end up in the rough. He's going to end up in a bronca. He's going to be getting so frustrated, and I just think that's going to mess with him mentally a little bit, how upset he gets when things don't go his way. So I'm very happy to fade him. And so for me, Tony Finau, I think he's going to go overlooked a lot this week. I think this is a really good buy low spot for him. I know people were really upset with how he performed at Oak Hill, where he just struggled mightily. But again, he's a top 5 iron player in the world, kind of in the same mold as Cantlay and Schauffele. When he's on his game, every bag in his club is working together. And so I just think those all-around skills. And he does have a very good track record on firm courses as well. So I do like Finau. I'm going back to JT. I know I say it every time, but, when I hear Max Homa say that, he played a practice round with him, and, if they were keeping track, he would have shot like a 61. Like, he was just striping it. I've seen some, just around the green, just all the different types of shots that you have to hit around here. He's got all those shots. So, when we're getting down to 8,700 here, that's a spot that, a lot of people are down on him. From what I saw yesterday, his ownership is still pretty low. I think people are going to still be sour on playing him. So I really love JT this week. And then Hideki, like you said, John, he has not missed a cut in either a PGA Championship or a US Open. We're going back to like 2015 here. So similar to Xander, just you're looking for a model of consistency in the 8K range, it's Hideki. He's got one of the best short games in the world. Not going to be I've heard some people talk about a putting contest. I don't see it here at all. He's going to make the putts he needs to. And so I just think Hideki at 8,600, even if you want to not necessarily start here, but if, I've built a bunch of lineups where I'm going Spieth, Smith, and either JT or Hideki. Those are 3 guys with win equity. If you're looking to kind of skip the top range. So there's a lot you can do in this upper 8K range.
Byron, I know also that one, if you want to speak about Justin Thomas, you think he could be trending in the right direction, even if you're underweight on him. And two, I also know you're fading Jason Day. So go ahead and give those reasons for everyone.
Yeah. The JT play is interesting because we now have him at the lowest price he's ever really been. And he's also not 19, 20%, which I think is the issue I had with him in the past, where when he gets to these kind of prices that everyone salivates over, everyone rushes to him. But now we go to a course that he's sitting around 10%. I don't mind that at all. He also kind of pops with the putter in majors. Current baseline, he's 102nd in the field in all sorts of events. And then when you get to majors, it's 51st. So I don't know if he's going to be putting much better this week, but there's a chance, if history repeats itself, he'll be putting much better, typically in a major. And then Jason Day, I think I'm more fading him in the Rainmaker side of things, John, particularly because that's like a long-term injury concern. But if his ownership starts trickling towards like 5, 6, 7%, I may dive in on Jason Day just for a little bit of exposure there, because he's second in bogey avoidance. He pops and doesn't. He's also won, I think, a US Open in the past, and he's a really good golfer. And if we're going to get him at this kind of price, there is obviously concern about the injury on his wrist that he has self-diagnosed, apparently. All that jazz, changed his irons up. There's a lot going on, but I think people can get scared off of him because of that case. But it's just for a 4-round event. Anything can happen.
Okay, I think we've dwindled down and gave some particular options that we really like and are fading in the 8Ks. So let's chop the 7Ks in half, because I think this is where it gets really interesting in that there are lots of pivots to discuss. At the top, Tommy Fleetwood, 7-9, just lost the playoff to Nick Taylor, of course, in Canada last week. Tom Kim, 7-8. Corey Connors, always underpriced for majors, at 7-8. Joaquin Niemann, 7-7. Justin Rose, 7-7. Bryson D. freaking Shambo at 7-6. Keegan Bradley, 7-6. Sebastian Thigala, 7-6 as well. And then we will stop at the 7,500s because it's probably quite a few players to discuss. And Patrick Reed, Wyndham Clark, Adam Scott, and Ricky Fowler. Ron, go ahead and get us started in the top of the 7Ks.
Yeah, so I love Joaquin Niemann here at 7-7. Coming off a poor performance at the PGA, I think this course is much, much better for him. His low ball flight is going to play much better in these firm and fast conditions. Bankgrass is the only kind of surface he really puts well on. One at Riviera, which is another George Thomas design out there in California. He also plays above his baseline on tougher courses. So I think Joaquin Niemann is a great play at 7-7. Tommy Fleetwood, again, is another guy who, I'll be looking at. Both him and Rose, they played a lot recently, haven't had many weeks off. But I think both of those guys are just striking it so well. Justin Rose, of course, the best bankgrass putter in this field. I don't think you can go wrong with him. And just kind of staying at the top, I know Ricky Fowler is going to be pretty popular this week at 7,500. But he's the guy when you're looking at, if Xander's the 9K consistent guy, Hideki's the 8K guy, Ricky Fowler's your 7K consistent guy. Just every week, finishing top 20, getting in that range. So I just think his all-around game, his ability to, again, the touch he can display around these greens as well. Fowler's a guy who, might be a little chalky, but he's a guy who will be playing a lot in that upper 7K range.
And usually, Ron, this is when you talk about Patrick Reed. The last two major DFS tournaments that we've gotten to play him, you spoke highly of him. And I really thought you were going to do so again because I like Patrick Reed, not only as a pivot from Fowler in that important 7,500 range, but honestly, everything he does well fits this course, whether it be scrambling, sand saves, approach shots, accuracy off the tee. I like Reed a lot this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's a little bit lower down my list, but yeah, just the kind of in the Spieth, Cameron Smith, kind of same type of player where he can just kind of save pars when you don't expect him to. Obviously, he's one of the best putters in this field. And yeah, when you're talking about around the green play, there's no one better than Patrick Reed. So he's definitely a guy who performs well seemingly every single major. And so, yeah, he's definitely someone who I will be playing as well.
Bryson DeChambeau, also one of only 3 outright bets I made for how he's playing. Top 5 in this field in good drive percentage over the last 3 months, which is a stat we use at betfairgolf.com to show and highlight how many inches from the rough you are inside the fairway for accurate drivers. And then, of course, 7 of his 8 wins on the PGA Tour have come on bent grass greens, for what that's worth. So I like DeChambeau quite a bit at 7,600 as well. But Byron, go ahead and give us your thoughts, the top half of the 7Ks.
Yeah. So a really weird thing coming on here is, if we lived in an alternate reality and you hit a button and a golf club turned into a calculator or a canvas, Bryson DeChambeau would turn into a calculator, and Patrick Reed would have a massive, beautiful Bob Ross canvas in his hands. And I think you need a canvas in your hands when that button gets switched, because this kind of golf course requires, as we've mentioned many times so far, touch, feel, creativity, magic beans, luck box factory stuff, So I do think if I'm fading someone like Bryson, there's about like 11 guys at double-digit figure ownership in the 7K range, which is kind of peculiar for a DFS.
Do you have him Do you have him as one of the double-digit guys right now?
Yeah, I'm seeing him around about 15-ish%. So that's kind of high for me. I wouldn't mind going to like a Sahith Theegala, who I feel like would also be walking around with a big old clunky canvas, and he's played here regularly. I think he said he's played here over about 30 times on his SiriusXM interview. He's also one of these guys that struggles off the tee. Everything else is so solid for Sahith. So great course knowledge, I think, can really be beneficial this week for him. And then let's go to some guys like Justin Rose is going to be my chalk bomb that I'll be eating. I just think he's super safe, plays great in majors, putts well in majors, and he's just general form is just trending in the right direction. Really good long iron player as well. So I don't mind him. I'm out on Ricky. Ricky's been putting much better lately. He doesn't putt well in majors. So if you're going to give me a guy that's 20% owned in Ricky Fowler, and you've got a glaring deficiency, like he's 125th in strokes gained putting in majors. So I don't know how that's going to be beneficial. I know the price is super cheap, and he has been playing great golf. But if you take a look at the PGA Championship, the putter let him down. So that's a very recent situation of a long-standing trend that he's had. So I don't mind Patrick Reed either, though. Lots of guys to like here.
And Fowler, as Ron mentioned, safety net, great cash gameplay at 7,500 when we're not worried about ownership in your 50-50 tournaments. But I think Reed is an amazing pivot at the same price. God, I love Patrick Reed this week. Moving on. Oh, you're on mute, Ron.
I was just going to say Adam Scott is another guy I forgot to mention. Who's just, he's maybe playing the best golf he's played in the last 5 years right now. So, if you're trying to fit, like for me, if you're going to go Scheffler, JT, top of your lineup, you're looking for like this mid 7K range. And yeah, Byron said there's a lot of high ownership down here. But if you can kind of spread your ownership around, the more guys you can use down here, the better. Kind of mix and match what I like to do. So I think Adam Scott's a good name too.
I'm still pivoting my face off in this range because as we get into the 7Ks and the lower half of them, Taylor Montgomery 7-4, Alex Noren 7-4, some others that stand out, Abraham Answer 7-4 as well, Nick Taylor fresh off that win that Byron called last week. That's why I ended up playing him, only because Byron spoke highly of him at 7-3, Seamus Power 7-3, Keith Mitchell 7-3 as well. And then I think a couple other popular options will be Victor Perez 7-3, since he seems to have gotten noticed of late. Siwoo Kim at 7-3 as well. Mito Pereira, who I came into the week thinking I was going to play, but man, it really sounds like he's getting steamed harder than anyone in this range. Cam Davis, same price as Mito as well at 7-2. Gary Woodland 7-2. Diddy McCarthy 7-2. I mean, the list goes on, Ron. So go ahead and just get us started. Russell Henley 7-1 as well.
Yeah, so the case for Mito, I think there's really good reason people are turning to him. Not that, again, if you're looking for leverage, I don't think you ever want to have a 7-2 guy who's 15, 20% owned. Okay, that never usually works well. But not only did he make the cut with good finishes at both majors this year, but he gained 17.4 strokes ball striking in those two events. And those two challenging courses. We're talking Augusta and Oak Hill. He's got 4 top 10s on the Live Tour this year, so he's kind of playing well wherever he plays. Hey, remember, it was just at Southern Hills, which is a comp course. Maybe not a great comparison, but you're talking Bermuda rough, you're talking bent greens. he contended there, and it's got very tight runoffs like Southern Hills, so it's just something to keep in mind. If you want to get different in a lot of other places, I think he's a great play. Love Siwoo Kim. He gaining 5+ strokes ball striking in his last 5 events. 4th at the Memorial. People talk all the time, especially players who play with him, about it doesn't get talked about enough, but how much of a magician he is around the greens as well. So, I just think at this price, a major winner. Siwoo Kim, you don't know what you're going to get from him sometimes. He's kind of a mini Tyrrell Hatton. When things go bad, they really go bad. And there is a possibility for that this week on this course. But I think the upside he presents here is really good. My other favorite guy down here is going to be Russell Henley at 7-1. He has the precision, ball striking to finish very high. And he's another guy who's been really consistent when you dig deep and look at his history in majors. He's played in 18 majors in his career. He's made the cut in 14 of them. He's got 5 top 25s. He was just 10th at Augusta for the Masters. So I think Russell Henley is a guy down here who, really another guy we're looking for upside. He gives it.
I completely agree on Russell Henley. I even went into Byron's DMs this morning, was asking his ownership as I was looking for ways to get up other players like Mito that I think will just be popular, although I like his form, in the low 7Ks. But Byron, go ahead and give us your thoughts in this range.
Yeah, I'll just get Seamus Power out the way. Major guy, always got to mention him. Hasn't been playing that well lately. I'm okay. I'll go back to him at another major. He's only 2%, whatever. Taylor Moore is someone that's kind of popped a little bit for me. He's a really solid long iron player, hits a bunch of green irregulations, pretty solid putting from 5 to 15 feet in general. And I think you're going to need that around this venue. Who else do we like? We like some serious, we'll go some pivots here. Tom Hoagie. He's going to be like 1% owned. He is one of the best iron players in this field. He's typically super accurate off the tee, doesn't necessarily have the most distance. I think that is not that big of a deal here. Like we've mentioned many times, he's 1% owned, Tom Hoagie. Harris English also trending real nicely with the ball striking on approach, chipping and putting. Once you get off the tee box here, Harris English is going to be running rampant. I like what he can get up to. Chris Kirk, $7,100, 2% owned. He plays great golf in majors, missed the last 2 cuts he's played in, but I think he's made the last 4 major cuts and plays solid golf in those. Ryan Fox, a little more chalky, 5-ish%, $7,100. Also, just a great golfer from the Euro Tour that's now got special temporary membership on the PGA. He's trending in the right direction quite regularly and has played well in majors too. And then Eric Cole, $7,000 flat. He finished T15, I think, at the PGA Championship last major and just went surging up the leaderboard at the Canadian Open to finish inside the top 20 last week. So he's playing really good golf, plays good golf on tough golf courses, and then can't go without mentioning Emiliano Grillo either. I think from a ball striking standpoint, if he can just do what he's been doing, I love what he can do here, and the putter seems to have fixed itself. So the only issue there for him at $7,000 is around the green. And at that price point, you can have a pain point like that and just handle it just fine at 3% ownership.
What do you have Grillo's ownership at right now? And what do you have? Who was I going to ask you about? Eric Cole at as well, because I thought Eric Cole would be kind of popular, but if I'm wrong, I would like to play him.
He's like 6-7% right now.
Oh, interesting.
Cole.
Okay. He was so popular last week just because of a weak field, and he made sense in that mid 6K range.
Yeah. And I think, the weird thing is, like, if you get priced low from the 8K into the high 7s, ownership can flare up. But if you get priced close to the 6K range, people get scared of just clicking a name that's $7,000 or less, right? Okay. It's like a weird, if you were 6,900, I think you'd be even less owned. So it's just a weird thing like that where super low price guys typically don't get clicked as much, I think.
All right. Grillo at 7K, I think, is an amazing pivot as well. He's top 20 in my model. And so I had to research him deep because I was confused when I first saw it. Moving on to the 6Ks, though. Byron, I will kick it to you first, since you said you are here to help out just in case people want to try to stuff 2 of the 5 10K guys.
Yes. Let's talk about some guys in the 6K, and we'll start off with Patrick Rodgers at $6,900. This guy's been balling out. I think he's been kicking ass in majors, man. I don't know why he can't close a tournament, but when it comes to a big event, he tends to just play just fine. He's $6,800, $6,900. He's going to be roughly 4 or 5% owned, but that's fine for that price point. Major off the tees and putting, he's just so solid on those two aspects. We can deal with the approach play in $6,900 range. Matt Kuchar, the best around the green play in the field, top 10 in bogey avoidance, and he dominates par fives, even though he doesn't have that much length. I think it's mainly because of that around the green play. He's $6,900. Andrew Putnam sits at 47th in my model, and he's also super accurate off the tee, really tidy around the greens, great at avoiding bogeys. He's third in the field in bogey avoidance this year. Then Adam Schenk, $6,800. How many times have you been watching golf lately and seen Adam Schenk at the top of a leaderboard? He's got kind of the opposite aspect where he just crushes it off the tee and then deals with the rest of his game from there. And he's been playing some really solid golf too. Dylan Wu is $6,400, which to find someone below $6,500 that you have semi-conviction about this week is going to be very difficult. And I think Dylan Wu is one of those few guys that sits in that range. And then Patrick Harrington is $6,600. And I think he has made all 4 cuts on the PGA Tour this year. He's been flirting with victory pretty much every other week on the Champions Tour. He doesn't have terrible distance off the tee. He's actually above average there, and he's really tidy around the greens. Made the cut at the PGA Championship. He's $6,600.
I want to add, Ron, that I don't see why we shouldn't go back to Sam Bennett either, since we've talked about him of late, just to get into that final pairing with Scotty Scheffler for a T16 at the Masters, a T20 last week at the low 6Ks that kind of came out of nowhere. And like his best attribute has been his accuracy off the tee. So at least we will get that from a 6,500 player. What else do you have for us in the 6Ks?
Yeah, so I actually had a ton of notes on these guys, but since I can't look at it on the screen right now because my internet's not working, but a good thing is Byron literally talked about most of the guys I had, so that's good. I'll give you another guy. So Brian Harman, I can't remember if you mentioned him in the 30 names you mentioned.
I don't know who he is, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, look, he's had some really good major finishes recently. Plays pretty decent in the US Open, 6,900. Top 10 around the green player. So again, Brian Harman, really good short game, which you're going to need this week to save you. And again, just trying to make par on a lot of these, and especially these massive. I mean, there's literally 3 holes that are par 4s that are over 500 yards. So Brian Harman, sneaky good long iron player too. So I really think he's a great play at 6,900. Sam Stevens, recently kind of up and down, but he is another guy who in the 6K range has kind of that all around game. I know he struggles at times with the short game, but I think he has the upside here at 6,600. Let's see, who else was there? Michael Kim, okay, the last guy to get in the field. Kind of has turned his whole career around here, just playing really well. Again, California kid. So another 6K guy, I think that maybe not played as much, but I think he has the upside. He's got length off the tee, surprisingly. He's a really small guy, but can really pound it off the tee. And so I just think when you look at his recent performances, he's definitely worth a play down here.
Byron, it always makes me worry when Ron sells me on Harman as I scramble through my contest right now and try to add him in everywhere.
Honestly, one of the funniest moments I've ever had on a camera in my life.
Anyways, before I sub him in everywhere, let's get into, since I think it's important to give everyone 3 lower priced options for this week, knowing that they can do kind of whatever they want if they pick at least one of the 10K guys. Let's go, Ron, your 3 favorite golfers priced 9K or less. So not in the 9K range, below 9K.
All right, my phone is about to die, so I'll go quick here. Justin Thomas, okay. I'm going to go Hideki. I think those two at 87, 8,600, and then I'll go Russell Henley, 71. Those would be my 3.
Awesome.
I'll have cores with those 3 guys in them.
I have a lot of Hideki and Henley. Byron, what about you?
I'm going to go Justin Rose, Sahith Theegala, and we're going to roll out Matt Kuchar at $6,900.
I also, like Ron, want to back him up and say I like Hideki, Bryson, and I think Siwoo Kim, though Russell Henley as well is very high on my list, and Patrick Reed. I'll give you a couple more. That's a couple of my flag plants. Ron, before your phone dies, your favorite bet this week?
I got Ricky Fowler plus 110 for a top 30. Okay, ownership doesn't matter at that when you're betting. So love Ricky Fowler top 30.
Byron, favorite bet?
Xander Schauffele top 20, just wherever you can get it at plus 110. Yeah.
Oh, anything. I like it.
Yeah.
And at 1% of your phone, Ron, tell us what else you have coming out of the site for everyone.
Well, I'm going to have to go somewhere with internet, but I will get it done. First round leader, all that stuff. I'll get some ownership posted on the website. So I know we got a lot of new users, a lot of people signing up this week. So check the Discord. A lot of stuff will be posted on there tonight. Lots
of updates coming into the projections right now as well. Byron, what about you? Where they can they find your work?
Yep, at the Model Maniac on Twitter is the hub for all things rotoballer and back nine bets. I've got all sorts of value plays, the Rainmaker crap, and my signature Breaking 100 article that's out there and my pinned tweet. So lots of fun stuff.
We'll be back next week. But of course, remember, as Ron said, tune into the site, ownership projections and first round leaderboard picks coming up this evening at betbriscoff.com. So until then, enjoy the third major. Good luck to everyone, whatever you're doing, however you're playing this week. And remember, be a little bit kinder than what's required. We'll see you next time.